Welcome to Catalyst Conversations, the podcast where we spark powerful change in women's wealth. I'm Hadriana Leo, a wealth coach, counselor, and strategist, and each week we dive into the conversations, strategies, and stories that help women confidently create the life they've always dreamed of. In this space, we bring together the wisdom of people from all walks of life who are ready to break free from the cycle of financial stress and build lasting wealth. From interviews with inspiring people, to deep dives into money mindset, to practical tips for achieving financial freedom, you'll find it all here. Together, we'll unlock the mindset, tools, and strategies that empower you to step into your financial power. Whether you're tuning in for the first time or you're a loyal listener, we're here to support your wealth journey. So grab your favorite bevy, settle in, and let's get started on transforming your relationship with money. This is Catalyst Conversations, igniting change in women's wealth. Let's spark the conversation. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Catalyst Conversations, and I am totally hyped because I have with me today, for your listening pleasure, Miss Fennella Bruce. Fennella, welcome.
Thank you so much, Adriana. Great to be here.
Yeah, you know what? When I have such great guests coming and giving their time on this podcast, I'm really humbled, and knowing what I know about you, about what you're doing, what you're about, I know that our audience is in for a treat. But let's get the ball rolling. With most of my guests, they will share with me a saying or a phrase that really resonates with them. And for you, this is what you shared. Okay. Don't chase checks. If you work hard, money will flow your way. Now, okay, so this is me, the money navigator, 100% agreeing with you that we shouldn't chase checks. You tell me, what about this resonates?
Well, it resonates in a couple of ways for me, both personally and professionally. So I would start with personally because that came before professionally. And in my personal life, I've always been that way. And I'm not a big person, I'm not a person who goes around like lending people money or things like that, right? But I know there was a time, a long, long time ago, and I had a friend and I had lent some money to, and they weren't, giving back the money. So part of the, don't chase checks thing is I think the stress factor that comes along with chasing after that money. So whether it's money owed or it's whether you did money for work or it's whether you helped out a family friend. For me, I always say, don't loan more than you can lose. Mm-hmm. And also, if you don't get that money back, that was the price of that relationship.
Yeah.
So that's what it was worth, whether it was $50 or if it was, $5,000. That person then make sure that that was the cost of them not being in your life anymore and keep it moving. It's a loss, yep. Right? And that's part of accounting on the business side of stuff. You're going to have losses, things that it's a loss, yep. Right off at the end of the year that you're never going to be recovering, invoices that aren't going to be paid, and you're going to have that in general in life. So, getting caught up trying to call someone and text someone or chase them down, and the effort and the time, and that comes back to like, what is your time worth? Spending your time doing all of that, and probably not, because if the person had the money, they give you the money. Yeah, if they were intending to give you the money, they give you the money, or they would respond, or they set up a payment plan or whatever. So the minute you're starting to do that, it's a futile exercise. You're not going to get the money back. Solve yourself to that. That was the cost of that person being, exiting your life, and keep it moving. And don't let it consume you, because that is also like stress affects your health, affects your ability to focus. It shows up in different ways, in disease and all sorts of things. So I adopted that sort of mantra for myself personally, and I took it into my professional life once I became an entrepreneur, in the same thing that my work shows, the quality of my work, my reputation shows itself. I don't really do what you call traditional advertising. Like I do, I put stuff on social media of my work, of, clients that I've booked and gotten work for, and that speaks for itself. And so I don't do any sort of like, hey, hire me, this and that. All of my clients have been referrals or people who've seen my work or people I've met, networking, that sort of thing. And that's where I say that's the other part of not chasing checks. And then the final part of that is also not doing things just for money.
Mm-hmm.
I decide to do things based on if I think, first of all, if someone's going to get media coverage, if it's a good story, if it's somebody I want to work with. I've walked away from very lucrative contracts because I knew that it wasn't going to be worth the headache or, stress, or we weren't connecting, or I felt maybe it's you're really not going to get, I'm not going to take your money and not get the results, right? So that's about not tasting the check. So not just doing something for the money, because the end result is not worth it at the end of the day.
Yeah. You know what? Knowing what I know about you, that is 100% on point, because that's exactly how you operate. You're not going to go chasing after anything, and I love the idea that, what, if that's the cost of getting rid of that thing, that client, that person who's supposedly a friend, then so be it. Some are more costly than others, but so be it. Lesson learned, moving on. But I like that kind of laid back approach, which definitely we could use a little more of. Not laid back to the point where you're just going to sit there and think business is going to come, we're not. You're still doing the thing. You're still working the plan, but your incentive is not just that dollar figure. There are other criteria that you would put into play in making those decisions that are going to turn into the money that will, fund your life, fund joy, and take care of everyone else. So let me tell people what you do before I run away with this. Fennella is an entrepreneur. Okay, but she wasn't always an entrepreneur. She is a former journalist, which is why, like, no pressure, Adriana. A full-time, big-time producer is sitting across from me, and I'm here in my little glitchy little thing doing my recording and having a blast, by the way. Let me just tell you. She's a producer, she's a mom, and you actually, Fennella, left more than 25 years successfully moving through the television industry, television news, and you left all of that to launch your own company. Why on earth would you do that?
I think I've always been an entrepreneur at heart, and life circumstances, responsibilities. I have 2 children. I was a single mother. So all of those things, I had to get something more secure, right? And so even when I was working as a news producer, I was always doing little things on the side. And when I graduated from journalism school, I actually did have my own sort of PR business where I was doing stuff for community groups, and that was just actually more for me to get experience more than anything, right? Because I knew they would want, let someone not as experienced as me that doesn't cost as much help them with their PR. So there's always kind of like a reason for me doing what I was doing. And when my last position was at CTV News Channel as producer there, and I felt sort of like I had done everything that I wanted to do in this area, and I didn't feel as challenged. And I thought, this would be the time. My children were now in their late teens, didn't rely on me as much for things, and I thought, okay, this is the opportunity. I'm still youngish. I still have brain power. And I had actually worked with a job coach a year prior to me leaving, trying to figure out if I had the entrepreneur guts, bones in me, right? To do that and what that would entail. And so I did a lot of, I didn't just decide one day, I'm going to take this job and shove it, I'm going to quit my job, right? I did the research and I did the work, and I started doing little things while I was still working, this test the waters to see if this is something I wanted to do, if there was a market for it. And by the time I left CTV, I had no choice because I was so busy. And I mean, they wanted me to stay. I was so busy, I couldn't do both. And
Right.
so I knew that this was the right direction for me to go. And I just wanted to be able to make my own decisions about the work I wanted to do, who I wanted to work with, feel a little bit more challenged, and see if I could do this business. Now, I always had a backup plan. Like I said, they didn't want me to go, so I always knew that if things didn't work out, I could go back to producing, or I could freelance, at a number of different stations where I had good contact. So I did have that sort of security. It wasn't like, okay, I jumped and there was no safety net for me, right? And I had to have that safety net because I was single at the time, right? And so I didn't have a partner that would carry the finances if anything went wrong. So I had sort of like, okay, ideas in my mind that, okay, if things were slow or if things weren't picking up as I thought they would, I had this backup plan that I could always do that or freelance and make some money that way.
Yeah. You know what? It's interesting because a lot of people leave their jobs because they're frustrated with the job or because of burnout with the job. You left, essentially, you were kind of bored. Yeah.
Kind of.
Well, it's not that you didn't have work to do, but it was the same thing. You'd done all the things, you'd tried all the things. Maybe you were not bored twiddling thumbs, but you certainly were no longer being challenged. And I love that as incentive to do something different. At what point did you experience, or did you experience any fear in making that decision, even with all of your safety nets and the work that you'd done before?
I mean, I definitely had fear as the my last day approached, right? Like, am I making the right move? Am I going to be able to do this? So there was definitely an underlying fear. It wasn't a paralyzing fear, but it was an underlying fear of like, what am I doing? And there definitely was a learning curve in my first couple of years about what's involved in being an entrepreneur. And and we could talk more in depth on that, but there's a gazillion different hats that you have to wear when you're a solopreneur, right? So I had to learn all of those sort of things. So as much as people think it's like, oh, you just make your own schedule, or you roll out of bed at noon, and you can come and go as you please, and all those sort of things. No, I had to sit down. I had a business coach and sit down and, okay, this is my budget for the month. I have to make X amount of money every month to, meet those needs, right? I need to make X amount of money above that to sort of save and do the other things that I want to do or travel. So I had to really map out and set goals for every month so that I would be able to survive.
Yeah. Well, without a doubt, that's the reality of it. For a lot of people, entrepreneurship is a dream, but there are fundamental building blocks that actually allow it to not just be a dream, but the reality that you live and thrive through. So I wanted to ask this before we talk about your actual journey. You mentioned that you had, a job coach before you actually dove into entrepreneurship. Looking at, what it takes to be an entrepreneur, what were some of the things you all discussed?
Oh, we did a bunch of those, like, I don't want to call them airy fairy, but we did a bunch of those tests, right? Where you like, what's your parachute and what's your risk, assessments, and I, filled out all of these survey questions, and so there was that, right, to sort of see, my personality, right, if it was ready for entrepreneurship, the discipline that's required, right, and all of those sort of things. So mentally, was I prepared for that? And maybe the lean times, or when you have to, figure out how to get through those periods, right? So all those things we talked about, things that I didn't have at the time. I was not a big fan of social media, and his name was Chris. Chris was like, listen, at the very least, you need to get on LinkedIn. Like, that's where professionals are. You need to do a profile, and it's not your resume. He helped me. Okay, this is what it should look like. This is the format for LinkedIn and what you should have on there, and the little things that you can do to boost your profile with endorsements and all those sort of things. So he held my hand through that whole thing because, again, like at that time, social media was very new to me, and I had, like, for years been getting requests to join LinkedIn. I was like, I have a job, I don't need LinkedIn, go away, right? And so it was just wrapping my mind around these things and how they could help my business. I was also a slow adopter of Instagram, and that's one of the places where most people find me now because of a robust Instagram account. And it's a good way, again, I keep it very business focused, but to let people know what we're doing, what I'm doing, and bring visibility to my business. But I actually I looked up some things that were happening at I live in Durham, so the business center in Durham, and they had a class on Instagram. And so I signed up and I paid my whatever, $30 or whatever. And I went and I was like, okay, I get it now. I had to, like, that's how I work. Like, I had to wrap my head around something before I just signed up and was in there, right? Like, how is this going to work for me? What's the benefits? What can I do? How much do I have to, take part? Because I was like, you're intimidated because you see everybody having all these polished things on there and you're thinking you have to be posting every hour or whatever. And you don't. But when you have somebody calmly telling you that, then the anxiety kind of goes down, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, I was a late adopter, so I felt like, oh my gosh, everybody's ahead of me. Everybody has like 10,000 followers. I'm never going to get to that point. And you get consumed with that, and it's like, it's not even about that. And when you recognize that, then it just brings down the anxiety about things. So I suggest to anybody, if you're trying to become an entrepreneur or start something new, like, do your research. But there's so many things out there, like job coaches, like business manager, and it doesn't have to be like expensive. Like, there are free services as well the government offers. Like, look at those resources, business centers, and sign up for them. Like right now, no, not right now, I think it was in November, the business center has like a week of Do It in Durham where they have reduced costs for all these different classes and things that you can go to and take advantage of that are minimal. Like, sometimes they're free, sometimes they're like $20. And that comes back to like investing in yourself, right? If you want other people to invest in you, you have to invest in yourself first, right?
Yes,
and so
100%.
so get the knowledge and find out those things. And I encourage people. And it was interesting for me because when I started doing that, and I had a circle of a few friends that had been entrepreneurs for years, and I would be like, oh, I'm going to this class, or I signed up for this virtual thing, and they started doing it as well. Right? So it's, but they had been doing this stuff for like a long time, and they hadn't, or they didn't know about these things. And so, that's the other thing, is that make sure you have a tribe, a circle around you that will uplift you, inform you, and help you to get to where you need to go.
Yeah, that circle of support is vitally important because entrepreneurship, especially when you're by yourself building something, it is lonely as heck. And the people around you don't always get it, especially if your tribe prior to this was 9-to-5ers. They understand security and they're like, you crazy. What are you doing? So they don't get it. And as a result, it's not that they don't want to be helpful. They just have trouble relating. So having that tribe that's already identified that can help lift you up and carry you when you don't want to get up, and roll you up and out to get to where you need to go. I think that's vitally important. So needless to say, Fennella, I'm gonna make a bold statement. You are running a revenue generating business, dare I say, a business that is funding your life, correct?
It's funding my life. I have 2 employees, so it's funding their life as well.
No pressure.
So, and that is pressure. That's the biggest cost for my business, is payroll. And so I get it now, not to go off on a tangent, but I get it now when a lot of US companies run out of Canada because, having employees is expensive. Taxes and the, payroll costs, it's a lot.
Yeah. But that's what happens when your business grows. So we could use it as a reason to not do the thing, or we could use it as incentive to level up and, get that revenue train chugging even better and faster, and still staying in that sweet spot of work that you do that you really love.
Yeah, well, definitely, and that was one of the other things that was a learning curve for me. Is I in my position as a news producer, I definitely was in a managerial position, and I had people that were responsible to me and that sort of thing. But it's a different thing with when you're in your company, because as much as they are responsible for me, I have to make sure that whatever they're doing is bringing revenue in.
That's right. That's right. There has to be that ROI.
It has to be an ROI, right? A little bit more, micro than in the company, where it's like I don't really care because it's not me that's paying them, right? And the company is
Right.
the company that's paying them. So my goal is, yes, to make sure that they do their work, but I'm not really equating it to the bottom line in that role. But now I am like, okay, is this task really, like, do I need to have you do this task, or maybe this is something I can do because it's not really equating to making money to have you do it.
Right, right. And to be honest, if you were to filter your work down to a dollar value, or to an hourly revenue generating value, your work, or your time, your hour,
Mhm.
costs the company a lot more than their hour. However, you want time freedom. So you're going to have to give them some of the stuff you can do
Yeah.
so you can get some of
Get
that
some of that
time.
time. Yeah, I definitely do both of those things. So definitely my time is way more valuable, right? So I don't want to be spending it doing mundane tasks, right? So there's that, right? For example, I want to say it's mundane, but for example, I can do social media. I'm not as quick as my assistant Danae in terms of coming, creating content, right? So
Right.
it's better for me to have her do that, right? And I see the ROI on that, right? But say there's I don't know, invoicing. Like that's something that I can just do very quickly and very easily. I know what it should be, and it's two twos and I can do it. Do I need to have, one of my assistants do that? Not really. It's not something that it takes me like literally 2 minutes to do, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's something I can do very quickly, and I don't feel like, oh, I'm spending an hour doing this when I could have my employee do it, right?
Yeah.
So it definitely is a balance, right? That yeah, I don't want to be doing some things, right, that I could have them do at a lesser cost to the company in terms of time value, but I also want to be able to have that time for myself. that
Yes,
that that I
100%.
that I that I that I one of the reasons that I have employees, so that I give myself a break.
Yeah. Without a doubt, we want that time freedom. I don't know any entrepreneur that starts a journey of entrepreneurship not wanting the time freedom. But the time freedom comes at a cost. That means you need to make the money that allows you to spend the time not making the money.
Yeah.
So you have been at this now as an entrepreneur for about 6+ years as of the time that we're recording this.
Mhm.
You've learned a lot of things along the way. If you were to share a couple pointers to that new entrepreneur, the person who's even considering it, what are some of the lessons that you've learned that you think, you know what, if I had known this sooner, I may have been able to get along further or faster? What
Mhm.
is what are a couple of those lessons for you?
I think the first lesson that I definitely learned was that I don't have to do everything and be everywhere for everyone. So
Hmm.
I had to learn to set boundaries and parameters with both my clients and my family. So I felt like I needed to answer every call, even if it was like 9 o'clock at night or on the weekend, or when I'm in the middle of like dinner, because it's a client calling, or I need to respond to every email right away when it came in, because I want them to know I'm there to respond,
Yep.
right? And
Hmm.
so I was doing that. And so, yeah, the first year or so I burnt out, because that's what I was doing, right? I was trying to be there for everybody every single second. And
Right.
and I have a home office, so it was like, yeah, I could be working, and people are coming, interrupting me or talking to me during the day. I had to be like, no, this is like, if I was at CTV, you couldn't reach me, you couldn't talk to me.
That's
So
right.
this is what's happening when I'm here in this space, right? I'm not here. And so definitely it was learning to set boundaries and parameters. That's my first thing that you need to really make sure you do. And one of the things that I implemented was that I slowed things down, because typically the end of the year, especially December, is a slow time for everybody, right? Particularly last 2 weeks, people are just, as much as they want
Everybody.
to say they're working, you're not.
We're
Right?
out.
So I was like, you know what, November, December, I'm not going to take any new clients. I'm going to just, continue with the clients that I have projects for the end of the year, and take that time to reset, reflect, figure out the next year ahead, what I want to do, figure out what wasn't working the year before, because I was going, but I wasn't checking. I wasn't stopping to see, okay, you know what, this isn't really, I'm spending time, whatever, posting this, or I'm spending time doing, these webinars, and maybe not as many people are coming as they were when I first started. So maybe it's either refresh it or maybe stop it for now. Like, just looking at how and assessing. And I think a lot of people don't do that and figure out, okay, maybe this is something we should put on the back burner and try this instead. So I took those 2 months to always like figure out what's not working, what's working, what are we going to do ahead in the next year, what are we going to do differently? And now that I have employees, okay, we set markers. Okay, what, in terms of your workflow is a waste of time? What is something that you could be doing, so that we're always like moving ahead and progressing? And I guess the third thing I would definitely say is I'm always learning. So, I'm always researching, I'm always looking out for grant opportunities, um, uh, webinar opportunities, things to like, everything's about AI now. Had to wrap my head around that, right? Looking to figure out what that's about. I'm going to be expanding my business into the US. So right now I'm in the depths of doing the research on that whole process. And, again, people, and everybody hates the government, but there are a lot of programs and people that are working for you. So I met with
Yes.
someone from the State Commission to find out what it is I need to do, right? So you don't think that you're in a vacuum. There are so many resources that are there that are supposed to help you, that you can access. So I'm always, looking for things that can better my business, or that I can access for low or no cost, right? Because I'm
Yeah.
an entrepreneur, a small business. So I always say to people, like, just keep an open mind and make sure that you're doing your research and accessing things, tools that can help your business.
Yeah, 100%. And it's fascinating how boundaries actually help you do more. I
Mm.
found that in setting those boundaries, marking, putting things down. Well, I like to say I set my boundaries in Sharpie, not chalk, because people come around and they smudge the chalk line. There are
Mm.
some boundaries that absolutely have to be done in permanent marker. And then you choose to adjust them deliberately as things progress. But the boundaries actually gave you and created more opportunity in your business. And Fennella, you didn't burn out at work. You burned out on entrepreneurship. Amazing.
I
You had a
did.
corporate career where you didn't burn out, and I might add, a high pressure setting too. I mean,
Mhm.
this is live, this is news, this is national news in a
Mhm.
lot of the opportunities that you had. You didn't burn out there, but you burned
No.
out at FKB Media Solutions.
Yeah. Because I would just, and it's very easy, right? With this, like, you have a laptop, so you're just like sitting in bed and you're working, and next thing you know, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, right? So you have to be like, okay. And I'm right now, I had to reset again, New Year. So I've now got back. I'm now on a very strict schedule. Like at 10:30, everything is off. I start like, you know, turning off electronic stuff and everything at like around 9 o'clock or so, right? So that my mind is at rest, because I was having issues sleeping, and I was like, I need to get on track, and and I was having trouble, because I was having trouble sleeping, I was having trouble getting up, right? So I was getting up later than I wanted to, right? And
Right.
so now I'm like, my eyes are open at 6 o'clock
Go.
before the alarm, and yeah, and so, but I had to really regiment them, right? And one of the other things when you're talking about boundaries, right? I was talking about like wanting to respond to clients right away. It's that, and that's kind of part of personality as well. And so how I curbed that was I would respond and then I would just schedule it so that it wasn't like so if it came in on a weekend and because you always have your phone if you I saw the email, but I would respond so it's out of my system, it's out of my head, and I'd schedule it for Monday morning. Done.
Yeah. One thing that I've done, and I implemented this mid to late last year, I set my phone up. So all of my business apps, for one thing, they don't send notifications out on the weekend. So I don't care how many emails that I get. I don't
Mhm.
see any numbers looking at me, peeping at me in the corner of app saying, hey, check me out. That's one. And then I set separate home screens. So all of my business apps are no longer on the main home screen. My
Mm,
personal and wellness apps are on the main home screen. I have to swipe and then I'll see all of my business apps on my phone there. So on the weekends or any time when I said, I'm done, this is it, I have to deliberately swipe. And trust me, it was hard. I did want to swipe at all hours
oh,
of
I know. I could imagine. I like as you were saying that, I was like, yeah, but then I would just swipe and stay
Yeah,
on.
no, but that's the thing. So now, because of the intention that I've set, every time I swipe, I'm crossing a boundary that I've created, and then that mental, but wait, oh, that mental, you shouldn't, that mental. So it's just me trying to hack the brain. So
Mhm.
really and truly, I have no problems not responding anymore. This has been a work in progress over the years. And one, I just shut things off, not my phone. I'm sorry, not my phone, but
Mhm.
I literally power down the computer, put away the laptop, anything to do with work. And because I have my office is separate from my living space, I
Yeah.
close the door. So
Yeah.
sometimes you need the physical habits, the physical activities that is going to help you reinforce the intentions of setting these boundaries. But it works. Wouldn't you
It
say?
definitely
Like,
does.
even with you
Mhm.
getting to sleep earlier, not only are you up and alert, I find I'm more creative. I
Mhm.
think more creatively. Solutions come faster or they flow. Was that your experience? Or is that your experience with more rest?
Definitely. I know, and this is from years of working in morning television. And I used to get up at 2 a.m. Every day. And so the topic of sleep was something that we talked about a lot in the office. So
Uh-huh.
and we've done, I've done a number of sleep segments. So I know the importance of good rest and sleep. And when I wasn't having it the last month or so, I knew I needed to attack the problem before it got worse because it does affect so much um, that people don't realize from your weight, from your like fatigue, your mental focusing, all of these things. If you don't get good rest, you're gonna feel it, right?
Right.
And sluggishness and all those sort of things and motivation. So I know the importance of it. And so, okay, this has to be dealt with or else we're gonna have problems moving forward.
Yeah, for
And
real.
there's different reasons, whether there's things happening in your life and so it's hard to shut down your brain or stresses or whatever it is that may keep you up. But if you can get into a routine, which is key, and everybody needs to just think back to childhood. Like that's what works best for kids, right? And if you get into a routine and as you say, habits form, then it makes everything so much easier,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't become challenging if you just do it becomes automatic.
Yeah. And I think that sets us up for having great entrepreneurial experiences. Not only are you building a legacy, you're creating revenue and you're creating a life. I mean, we're entrepreneurs. That means for a lot of us, we are our business. and exploring that, creating that, building that. Yes, it'll take effort because we're going to do the work. We're also going to need to have a life. What happens if you decide to sell the business? What are you going to do then? Like, is business all consuming for us? We need to learn how to rest. We need to learn how to rejuvenate. You know what? We need to learn how to rest, period. Because I read Rest is Resistance. That's a marvelous book I read a couple years ago. And the idea is just rest to rest. We're not resting so we can go again, let's hustle more, let's hit it harder. Rest to rest. And that's it. There's no ulterior motive. There's no next thing after rest. Just rest to rest. And then when you get up, you work. And when you get up, you have fun or what have you. So I love the idea of these boundaries that allow us to be even better entrepreneurs. Fennella, anything else you want to share with our audience? I know you have a wealth of experience. What would you like to lay on us before we wrap this up?
I guess two things. I just wanted to say, and to what you were saying also, is that we're very hard on ourselves. And so it's important to give yourself permission. Again, when I first started, I felt like I had to go, 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 go. Yeah. And one of the benefits, particularly if you're working in a home office, is just down the hall is probably your bed. And it's okay in the afternoon to go and lie down if you need to for half an hour. And it's not like you're saying about, okay, you need to be like knocked out snoring. Sometimes it's not about sleep. It's just about lying down and just being quiet, right? And taking that moment, right? Because sometimes I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm tired. I should take a nap. And then I'm getting upset because the nap isn't happening right now and time is going to run out because I wanted to just take this half an hour nap. And then I have to say to myself, you know what? It's okay if you just lie there quietly, right? And you'll feel rejuvenated just by that. So I think that's one of the other things, that it's not always about a power nap or,
that's true. I do it myself. Sometimes it's just this exact couch. I may just decide I'm stretching out. And that's
just stretch out and lie down for a second and just take a moment. So that would be that. And then in terms of self-care, which I think is so important. But I think the other thing in terms of finances for people, like money, come back to what this is about. I would say that I think that one of the things that I found, like I talked earlier about, having to wear different hats. One of the things that I think is very important for people when they're becoming an entrepreneur, getting an entrepreneurship is two, actually not one, two of the things. Have an accountant or a bookkeeper, more importantly, an accountant, right? That is very key and will help you in growing your business and figuring out the right moves for your business and keeping track of what's happening in your business. And the second thing is to have a financial advisor, and that will help you personally. Right? And those two people can work together to help you grow your money, make sure it's in the right places, make sure you're moving things so that your money isn't going to the tax man, right? Which is very important. I know this, right? So as much as, again, coming back to investing in yourself, as much as people are like, oh, I can't afford it, or I don't want to pay that person, it will pay off. It will pay off. Pay that person. You will be happy that you've done it in the long run.
Yes, 100%, 100%. Great advice, Fennella. I am so happy that we had this opportunity to sit and chat. Tell people where they're going to find you. I know you're in the social media streets and you're in the interweb. So where are we finding you in the FKB media?
Well, first and foremost, I would like people to go to my website because the website is me. I'm not trying to promote everybody else's platform.
Fenella's good at this. She learned her lessons well.
I did. So my website is fkbmedia.com. You can put in .ca because I own that domain as well. That's a lesson too. But it will take you to .com. So yes, if you're doing your business and you're going to set up a website, make sure you own all your domain names so people can't try to sell it back to you. I actually had a domain name I was looking up that I was considering for something else, and it was $17,000 if you wanted it. So very key. So check out my website. I'm also very active on my YouTube channel. We have lots and lots of free bits of advice on there, YouTube stuff that I post on media, how to access media, how to write a media release, branding, marketing, all those sort of things. So please go to the website, subscribe. Apparently that's a big deal, so please subscribe. Don't just look at them. I don't even need you to comment, just subscribe. And check out my YouTube channel. So, and that's also FKB Media. And I'm on Instagram, FKB Media. So there's lots of fun stuff on there as well that I post. And we also have a lot of our clients, we offer discounts to their events and that sort of stuff. Sign up for my newsletter. Actually, that should have come after the website. Sign up for my newsletter. And you can do that on the website. There's a final page where you can sign up for the newsletter, and that comes every 2 weeks. We send out lots of goodies in that as well, and that's free too. And of course, I'm on LinkedIn. Fennella Bruce is the name you look up, and you'll find me there.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And so much more to learn. I can attest to the value of all the information that Fennella shares, especially on that YouTube channel. So if you haven't already, hop on over there and hit the subscribe button and the bell. That's the thing too. So whenever new stuff drops, you're the first in line to consume it. And by all means, all of these lessons were so good, Fennella. Thanks again so much for being here and for being part of this. And people will be looking you up. They will tell you, I saw you on Catalyst Conversations. And I'm going to be so thrilled because I love being part of getting that message out. So thanks again. I really appreciate you and your time.
Thank you so much for having me. This was easy peasy. I mean, you're easy to talk to, so it wasn't that wasn't hard. But I also love to share, the things that I've learned, and hope others will benefit from it. So I'm glad that you gave me the platform to do that.
My pleasure. So I'll be seeing all of you on the next episode of Catalyst Conversations. Until then, take care. Thank you for joining me today on Catalyst Conversations. I hope this episode sparked something powerful to help on your journey to building wealth confidently and unapologetically. If you love today's conversation, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if something resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it. Let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep moving toward your goals, stay empowered, and continue sparking change on your wealth journey. This is Hadriana, and you've been listening to Catalyst Conversations.